I'm calling this meeting to order. My name is Peter Hoffman, Chair of the Economic Development Committee. This is a remotely conducted open meeting. As a preliminary matter, this meeting may be audio or video recorded. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Paul Anderson.
Here.
Jason Rowell.
Here.
And I'm Peter Hoffman. With a quorum of the committee present, I call this morning meeting to order at 6:04 on Wednesday, February 26th. Now that we've got that out of the way. I think our best bet is to have Jason P. make his presentation. We were connected by the town administrator. And Jason, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Well, thank you, and I appreciate you guys taking the time. And I will try to be brief, respecting that you may have other agenda items, but wanted to take this opportunity to introduce myself and my organization, and also address sort of one of the topics that had brought me recently into conversation with Kristen and Peter. So my name is Jason Palich. I am the executive director of the 495 Metro West Partnership. We are a regional economic development organization focused on the region we call 495 Metro West. And if you're wondering what that is, it is a collection of 36 cities and towns along the 495 corridor between Westford at the northern tip, all the way down to Foxborough. We go as far east as Natick and Wayland, and as far west as Shrewsbury and Grafton. We're about 1/10 of the state's population, but we punch above our weight class a little bit in terms of number of employers and payroll dollars. The region is something of an economic powerhouse. We are an economic development organization, meaning we're focused on supporting sustainable economic growth. We're a 501c6 organization, so tax structure similar to a chamber of commerce. We're not a chamber. We're actually not specifically a business interest organization. What makes us a little bit unique is that we are a stakeholder alliance. So we're an alliance of businesses from the region, also municipal government leaders, higher education institutions, our region's chambers of commerce, the regional transit authorities, developers, environmental organizations, state legislators, folks you don't always find around the same table, around our table where the common interest is 495 Metro West. Of my 36 cities and towns, Berlin is the smallest by population, but by no means in last place for anything. Berlin actually is a community that also punches above its weight class in terms of jobs that you have, in terms of your importance to the region's economy, and kudos to you all for the work that you do to make that a reality. Briefly, some work that the partnership does. We, as I mentioned, are an economic development organization, and we do some what is often thought to be traditional economic development work. So site selection and retention, we help employers who are either looking to come to the region or looking to expand in the region identify a site or a property that might work for their needs, making introductions between them and municipal government or state government as appropriate, helping them to identify any state resources or financial vehicles that they may qualify for. We work in addition with workforce development partners like higher education institutions, MassHire, to try to connect them with employers. But beyond the traditional economic development work, we also advocate for the region's needs on a few key issues that we have long thought of as essential to supporting economic growth. Chief among them, transportation, housing, water resources, workforce development. Those are issues where it doesn't really make sense for any of our cities and towns to go it alone. Transportation infrastructure projects are very, very expensive. To give you some illustrative examples of work that we do, for anyone who ever travels on the Massachusetts Turnpike, the interchange of the 495 and the Pike is being redone right now. The partnership was the chief advocate for that project to be done over a series of years. That is at present the third largest infrastructure project in roadway infrastructure project in state history. We talk about it quite a bit. A much smaller scale project I find that we advocated for is way more popular in your neck of the woods, and that was the expansion of the ramp from 495 southbound to 290 west, from 1 lane to 2 lanes. That was something we pushed very hard on. As folks may remember, that ramp used to queue up for quite a distance. If you were headed down 495 south trying to get to 290 westbound, that ramp is of course now 2 lanes westbound, but we were one of the lead organizations in pushing for that project. So that's just an example of some of the work that we do. A little bit about the region that we serve. 495 Metro West, how our organization got started. A lot of our cities and towns, in spite of having different populations, have very similar demographic and economic characteristics. But any jurisdictional boundary where decisions were being made or resources were being allocated, they're split up. So our 36 cities and towns are in different counties, they're in different congressional districts, they're served by different regional transit authorities, they're served by different chambers of commerce, they're in different metropolitan planning organizations, which obviously matters for the distribution of transportation dollars, they're in different river watersheds, which can matter for EPA permitting purposes. Any jurisdiction where decisions are being made or resources are being spent, these communities are split up. And when our organization was founded about a generation ago, it was often thought to be to our detriment. A lot of our communities were considered Greater Boston, but on the extreme end of Greater Boston. A lot of our communities were considered Central Massachusetts, but sort of on the periphery of Central Massachusetts. And for the folks that helped to found our organization, there was definitely the sense that this very unique region needed a voice. So that is a little bit about who we are and what we do. You're looking at 50% of our staff complement. We're a mighty but small organization. We're 2 full-time employees. So it is me as executive director, and I have a deputy who is our manager of research and business services. We also benefit from the services of a co-op student from Northeastern University. We do have a very large volunteer board of directors. It is about 50 voting members and another 30 who serve in an advisory capacity. And the reason the board is so large, I mentioned earlier, we're a collection of businesses, local governments, chambers, the regional transit. They all have a certain number of seats to ensure that they all have a voice in the decisions made by the 495 Metro West Partnership. So we have a large board, but a board that is balanced to be representative of our stakeholders. Recently, I had a meeting with Kristen, as your town administrator, actually talking about the Salmon Pond Mall property, and I'll touch on that a little bit, which was sort of what led me to having a conversation with Peter, but always love the opportunity to present to our economic development committees, just to introduce us and the work that we do and see how we might be of help to you. And then very specifically, I'll wrap with sort of a comment specific to the Salmon Pond Mall property, which is obviously halfway hosted between the town of Berlin and the city of Marlborough. Major, obviously, parcel of economic importance to the whole region. Obviously, the city of Marlborough had recently completed some rezoning. The 495 Metro West Partnership does not ever tell any of our cities and towns what to do. We don't advocate to you when it comes to making decisions, because we try to speak for you. We do, however, encourage regionalization. So in conversations with Kristen and with Peter, I sort of wanted to offer our encouragement for Berlin to do whatever it can to make sure, to the extent your community feels is appropriate, the zoning on your side of that property is matching what Marlborough is doing. Obviously, for any future use of the property, which is very well managed right now by Liz. Liz does a great job, but obviously enclosed indoor shopping malls is a challenging market. And you can only manage so much there, and you've got the best in Liz, but she's doing the best she can. And in terms of considering future uses for that property, which again obviously has major, see Liz is coming on now, major economic importance, certainly would love to encourage as much kismet between the 2 municipalities as possible to make a complicated property less complicated in the future. And Liz, you logged on just as I was singing your praises. Great timing.
I did get to hear a good amount of it.
Excellent.
I was a participant, but not a panelist. So now you can hear and see me.
Excellent. Peter, with that, that's sort of my introduction. I'm happy to take any comments or questions from your members.
I've got a basic one. How can we help you, the EDC?
Great question, and it's a simple answer. Keep doing the work that you're doing, focused on the town of Berlin, and to the extent that you can benefit from any broader regional collaboration, please let me know. I'm happy to try to match you up either with neighboring communities, or if not, sometimes a neighboring community, perhaps a community in a similar boat on a particular issue where it might benefit you to share resources or even experiences and information. Also, just to keep in mind that the partnership is happy to be an advocate for your community on those issues of transportation, housing, water resources, especially if you are pursuing any state resources. We're always happy to do letters of support or reach out to state partners to advocate on your behalf. So the simple answer to your question is keep doing what you're doing and let me know how our regional voice can lift up what you're doing locally.
Who funds you?
Great question. We are mostly funded by private support from businesses. We're not a membership organization. So we call our supporting companies investors. They invest based on the value they think that the region and their companies receive from the work that we do. So just by way of example, some of the larger investors by dollar amount, Caruth Capital, which is a major commercial real estate developer, Sanofi, formerly Sanofi Genzyme, Boston Scientific is a supporter of ours as well, GFI Partners, some of the region's life sciences companies, a mix of companies that just contribute to support our work because they feel that the region benefits from what we do. We are also the recipients of a state grant through what's called the REDO program. That's an acronym, REDO, Regional Economic Development Organization. It's a state grant program. It's a competitive grant program. There's up to 12 across the state. We all have to submit applications each year. We serve distinct regions. And so that is some state funding that we can use to provide technical assistance to businesses without charging them. So for example, I mentioned we're not a chamber. If the partnership is going to help you with something, you don't have to pay a fee or anything for that. We just help you with that state assistance. We're not a line item in the budget or anything. We have to compete for that every year, but that is another source of funding we have. So combination of private dollars and state dollars on a competitive basis. And less, this individual cities and towns typically contribute $500 a year, but that varies by city and town, and we don't penalize municipalities if there's a year where they're not able to do that.
Paul, Jason?
No, I don't have any I mean, I'm interested in the discussion that Liz, what Liz has to say, and then what Jason P has got to say about malls in general and what we can do to encourage their growth and vitality.
And do you want me to start that now, or did Jason
Maybe
Rowell
it-
have a question?
Maybe Liz wants to talk first or give her update, but that would be my general question.
Well, Liz has got to leave by 6:30. Is that still so?
I can stay a little bit past now because I was 5 minutes late, so I could take this from home and not have to rush to my next call. So just by way of kind of an update, I think Jason knows most of this, but maybe not the latest and greatest news. So the mall is going on the market. I think everyone's aware of that. We're in the process now of putting the book together. We've identified a broker. They're under contract. We're in the process of getting some appraisals done. So because it's owned by the bank right now, there needs to be 3 appraisals completed before they can, move forward on, actively marketing it. And then the bankruptcy court still needs to approve like kind of every step along the way. So right now we're in that phase where we're working on the appraisals. There's been at least, I know, one company that's been identified to do an appraisal. I think she's got all 3 identified, but I've only heard from one. So the process is moving slowly. I'm thinking that probably by the end of March, the appraisals will be either well underway or complete. And it'll be hitting the market April 1st, let's say, as an outside date. And so then we're looking at 30, 60, 90 days, probably 30 to identify a buyer. Then they usually get 60 to 90 days to due diligence. There's an extra step with the bank involved that they have to get approval. And then there's like a waiting period. So we're probably looking at fall to closer to the end of the year before a buyer is identified and a sale is consummated. That's sort of the timeline that I'm anticipating. It could go a little quicker. I've heard other people say September. I think that's probably unlikely, but it could happen.
Do you have buyers in the offing? You talk about it like it's a fait accompli that you have a buyer.
So generally, our broker has a list, right? He's got a list of kind of the usual suspects that are in the market for these kinds of properties, either for redevelopment or to continue to operate them as shopping centers. So that, the book will go out to those usual suspects. I've also reached out to Meredith because I know she's got somebody that has expressed some interest along the way. I've added them to Dave's list. Dave's the broker. And then Jason had mentioned another group to me and I threw them on the list. So Dave's gonna at least take a look at who they are and hopefully get them, at least some information once it hits the market. So if there's anyone else that anyone is aware of, I'm certainly passing all of that along to Dave Monahan, our broker. I also reached out to Meredith and connected her with Dave this week because she's got some disclosure issues with the person she's working with. So I said, well, maybe it's best to see if they want to be put in touch directly with the broker. So hopefully that there'll be some conversations going on between the two of them, and potentially this interested party sooner rather than later. My hope is that the people that purchase it are looking for it for redevelopment, some retail, but some other components of real estate, whether it be residential, entertainment. I don't think office really makes sense, but even some biotech, biomedical, that kind of thing. Not necessarily manufacturing, because I think you're going to have to get approval, well, you will, whoever buys, approval of the department stores. So there'll be some, restrictions placed upon it, not only through zoning, but also through what the department stores are willing to accept as neighbors, if you will. And I'm sure everybody on this call is somewhat aware of the complicated ownership situation and structure that we have here. The mall owns, the landlord, if you will, owns the mall and some portion of the exterior parking lot. Macy's owns their building in their parcel. JCPenney owns their building in their parcel, and Sears owns both of their buildings and their parcel. So it creates a difficult, I wouldn't say difficult, maybe difficult's not the right word, but a complicated scenario for anyone that's going to come in and try to buy it and redevelop it. So the best case scenario would be someone who's got some experience in retail, has that background, has maybe some relationships with the department store folks that can kind of maneuver through those waters a little bit better than your average say biomedical buyer who might struggle a little bit and look at that and say, yeah, maybe that's not something that we want to take on. And then, as Jason touched on, everyone knows that Marlboro has changed the zoning. It's very favorable for us from a sales standpoint. It certainly opens up other opportunities for people if they want to develop the property in something other than a full-blown shopping center, mall kind of opportunity. So we're hoping that Berlin will follow suit in some way, shape, or form, or at least give some indication that they're willing to take a look. I know they're willing to take a look. I've been talking with the planning board a little bit with Tim Wheeler. So I know that they're taking a look at what what Marlboro has already approved, and maybe issuing some kind of a letter or statement to either Meredith or to Meredith and myself, hopefully, that basically says, listen, we're not going to change the zoning now, but we are in support of what, for the most part, Marlboro has put in place. And so, whoever purchases the property can at least have some, security in thinking, I wouldn't say security, but at least some hope in knowing that Berlin is also willing to take a look at the zoning and make the changes so that it mirrors or closely mirrors what Marlboro's already done. And that's my 10-second, really fast talking spiel.
That was well summarized. Thank you.
Questions?
So Liz, what happens for the next 9 months in terms of stores and getting new tenants and whatever? Or is it longer? Because you talked about the process being through the end of the year.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
So, we're continuing to lease and actively lease. We've got a few restaurants that are interested in the vacant restaurant spaces that we have. Our leasing person is, I think, coming out next week and meeting with at least one of them. We have some other, kind of larger use entities, gyms and those kinds of things that we're talking to about filling one or two of our larger spaces, maybe putting them together. So it's not like we're coming to a halt on
okay.
leasing, but we have to be, a little bit cognizant of the fact that, under the current ownership structure, the bank's not going to want to invest an enormous amount of money in new leasing.
Right.
But they're also not gonna turn down a deal that maybe raises the value of the property if they can get it done quickly and, get some favorable terms. So we are losing tenants. I'm sure if anybody's been in the mall recently, Forever 21 is leaving. That's a big space, but we do already have a deal in the works for that because we knew that was coming. So that, hopefully we'll be able to backfill that relatively quickly. And, it really is just for us on the, boots on the ground. It's business as usual. We're gonna keep doing everything we can to keep the property moving forward.
Mhm.
And, hopefully get some new tenants in, and whoever buys it down the road can either, do what they need to do with the existing configuration.
Yep.
Well,
And
it's after the-
you, as this goes through, once the sale happens, or are you still going to be attending our meetings as a mall representative, or once that sale happens, you move on to some new adventure?
Well, I guess it depends on who buys it, if, my intention, and I've been through this process, unfortunately, more than once, probably about 5 times, where someone new has come in and purchased them all. And, for the most part, depending on the ownership entity, they keep the staff because they still need someone to run it while they're figuring out what's going to happen. So, hopefully I will stay. I have no intention of leaving willingly.
Okay,
But that's the plan for now, anyway.
cool.
And Peter, if I might just throw in some commentary about
Yeah.
what would like to
Of
see
course.
kind of meshed in with like what we fear. What we'd love to, there are different, and as I'm sure Liz could expound upon in detail, there's different approaches you can take to redevelop a parcel like this. You can try to get the most of the indoor retail. You can try to, take what's successful and then, switch up what isn't. You can try to move, new structures on site. The site certainly has a lot of parking space and it's got river frontage. There's a bunch of different approaches that you could take, but without getting into the specifics or the weeds of those, what we would certainly like to see is somebody who sees a future here, who's willing to make an investment, who's willing to say, we're going to put some skin in the game, we're going to put some capital down to try to find a long-term path to make this property all it can be and successful in the long term. Unfortunately, there are entities out there that will snatch up commercial properties just to suck the cash out of them and not do anything of value. Liz has done the best job she can managing. She's got that mall making as much money as it possibly can. And unfortunately, there is a possible outcome where somebody comes in and buys it and just says, we're just going to take all the cash out of it and not invest anything into it and keep riding it until it's past the point of saving. And unfortunately, there have been, there's two tales of two malls where somebody has come in and said, we're going to invest the capital necessary to make this a property for the future. And we're just going to take as much money of it out as we can. And then until it fails and, everybody leaves and it becomes a blight or an issue. We definitely would like to see somebody come into this property ready to make a commitment to the communities of Marlboro and Berlin, ready to make a commitment to the region, ready to say, here's our plan. And again, understanding there's different plans that could be. Here's our plan. This is what we're willing to invest. This is what we want to do. As opposed to someone who kind of preys on Liz's good work and says, look at this mall's making so much money. We're just going to keep quiet, take the cash out of the leases that we have now until we're not going to get any more cash. And it gets.
And so how do the towns get the preferable outcome as opposed to that we want to take the cash out and drain it until it's gone?
I'm so glad you asked that question.
Me too.
Making it, the zoning is really the answer, because making this as uncomplicated as possible. The property is complicated. When I was meeting with Liz a couple months ago and she was showing me the map, I mean, some of Liz's maps could be like abstract paintings in a contemporary art museum, because it's all these blocks and colors, and there's different ownership of the anchor stores. You've got a property that's in 2 municipalities which have different zoning. It's very complicated. There's no scenario where it's not complicated. To Liz's earlier point, we'd love somebody who has experience where the mall is owned by one entity, but the different department stores own, we'd love somebody with that experience, but the less complicated this can be, the better positioned it is going to be for a sale for someone who's ready to invest
Okay.
time and money.
So Liz, or both Jason P and Liz, why do you think that Berlin is waiting to amend their zoning?
I-
And
The
Marlboro,
conversation I had with Tim was,
and wait, and Marlboro is gung ho and got it done. Why the different philosophies?
well, I think one thing is, Marlboro kind of they rezoned the whole Donald Lynch Boulevard district at once. So it wasn't specific to the mall. They did the whole business district. And I think the new mayor kind of had it on his to-do list. Like, this is one of the things I really want to accomplish, because it's been out there for quite a while. I think my first day at the mall, somebody Meredith came up to me and said, "Hey, here's the vision plan." And here we are 3 years later. So it's not like it got done in a day. But I do think the new mayor had a lot to do with pushing it through, quickly, because he wanted to have that feather in his cap, and because it's the right thing to do. I think Berlin, you get a different, structure, obviously, governmental structure. I think what Tim said in the last email exchange I had with him was, I guess there was some concern about changing the zoning before there was a buyer in place with a plan. Like, that there was some concern about getting that done. I'm not sure what the concern, it was a very short email that I got back from him after the last planning board. He said he would have more information after the next planning board meeting. Because he was trying at least to get, I guess, a letter drafted, like I mentioned earlier, that said, we are in agreement that we would, mirror what Marlboro has done, or something similar to that. So rest assured, that kind of a statement, but, it sure would be nice to get the zoning change done ahead of time. I think it would, to Jason's point, it would encourage a lot more of the development that we want, and discourage the buyer that wants to just suck the money out of the place, which is a likely scenario if somebody who has a broader vision doesn't think they can get Berlin on board, or thinks it's going to be too big of a hurdle. So that's my concern. That's, I would love to see Berlin do something with the zoning here so that we can sell it as a package, instead of but they said they want to do it.
I'm surprised, because I thought the sentiment was just the opposite, that they were inclined to do it. They just wanted your buy-in, meaning you, the bank, et cetera.
And if I could just
Mall buy-in.
add in a comment, I don't think it's a difference in philosophy. I think it's just a difference in structure and timing. Marlboro has some advantages by virtue of both being a city and by having MEDC, so the Marlboro Economic Development Corporation, which is an entity with full-time staff funded by their hotel revenues. Marlboro has this wonderful, and Meredith Harris, who has MEDC, is the treasurer of the board of directors of the 405 Metro West Partnership. Marlboro as a city both has this entity that's got 3 staff, 24/7 focused on economic development. As Liz mentioned, they had the Donald Lynch Boulevard. They had kind of a district rezoning process, and they only, they've got city council. Berlin, you guys have town meeting. You have a town form of government with many different boards where there's potentially some input. You've got town meeting you've got to contend with in the spring. But I also know that Berlin is working, I believe you're working with CMRPC on sort of a total rethinking zoning thing that potentially this could be a part of. So from my conversations with you and Kristen and others, I don't get the sense that there's per se a difference in philosophy as much as it's a structure and timing kind of thing.
Right.
Process.
And
Gotcha.
it's Peter, with town meeting, we'd have to have a special town meeting in the fall. There's no zoning change that's going to come to town meeting in May. I mean, it's already too
Well,
late.
it's way too late, of course.
Yeah.
But this has
And
been
you'd have
discussed
to
for.
start. To Liz, if you get that letter from the planning board, I mean, that's at least helps. But obviously you would, if you had a special town meeting, change the zoning sometime in the fall, that would be even more helpful.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, this has been bantered about for a long time. It could have been on this coming warrant,
Yeah.
but for some reason, the planning board felt differently, which is surprising and news to me, but good enough. Good enough. Anything else you want to ask Jason P or Liz? Or bring up?
Happy to answer any questions you guys have and happy to be of support any way we can.
No, I'm actually rushing us because I want to get to the rail trail meeting at 7. Here in town. So, there's nothing else, Jason P and Liz, please stay on as long as you like. Got a little bit of business to take care of, and Jason, Raul, any questions?
Can I ask one more of Liz?
Of course.
Sears, any news at all about, because I didn't even know about this thing, what, level 99, right? That happened in the Sears location at the Natick Mall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And I mean, it's a huge entertainment. So I did not appreciate that a person that I worked with a long time ago, her husband is behind it. He does all that stuff. He
Really?
is the owner, I think, of Level 99, or at least his investors are the owners, but he manages all that stuff.
right.
So I did a chance. I mean, I know there's Hey Kiddos, but I don't think that's Level 99. I mean, that's a totally different beast, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, again, we don't own it, so
Yep.
it would be a Sears issue. I mean, if anyone came to me and said, hey, we're interested in putting a level 99 in Sears, I can certainly put them in touch with the people that are in charge of selling that parcel.
Right.
But that's, I don't know what the structure was at Natick. I don't know if Natick owned the Sears, if they bought Sears out, or if
Yeah.
the level 99 folks bought the building from Sears. I don't know.
I don't either. Okay. I may ask a little bit more about that to understand how that came to be.
Yeah, I would love to
The
know.
mall acquired that property.
Did they?
Yeah, it was Sears, like they owned it, and then when they went out, they sold their block to the mall.
Okay.
Because you have Dave and Buster's as part of that level 99. And then the first floor they're still working on. They have Lucid electric cars with the old Sears garage area outside. And they're
Right.
still working on leases with other parcels in there. But that's the one thing that mall did is they broke all those big boxes up and converted them into multi-use because there's nobody needs 300,000 square feet
Right.
unless it's an Amazon or something.
Okay. Well, can we touch on the minutes for a moment? I know Paul looked at both sets. Jason, did you have a chance to look?
I read the first set. I didn't read the second set.
The second set you could read while we're talking. It's very short.
Sure.
Do you have a moment to glance at it while we're talking?
Yes.
And let me just brief you on the sign while you're doing that sign issue and the electric vehicle issue. So the sign issue, you may or may not know, crashed and burned because Ed decided against having a sign, sponsoring a sign. So until we find a different sponsor, aside from Liz and her mall. You want a second sign, Liz?
Sorry, I'm sorry. What did you say, Peter?
Do you want a second sign?
Do I want to? I don't think so at this point that we're going to get a second sign. But I appreciate the offer.
So the sign is on hold, the sponsorship for the sign. And the electric vehicle chargers were going to be on Woodward, then they were going to be on Carter. And it got shot down by the neighbors, and they want to put the electric vehicle chargers at the municipal hall, at the town hall. So the energy committee or the town government is going to take over, trying to get that sponsored, or the grants for it. I think with the Trump administration, that's probably gone anyway. So that's all that happened. Any questions,
Nope.
Jason? It's unfortunate, but the neighbors were very convinced that the electric vehicle chargers would create noise and litter.
Yeah. I don't know that they would or not.
Yep. So that's it. So I'm gonna make a motion to adopt the minutes with the correction that Paul made before we were online, which is right above line 3, number 3 on the September 19th. It's a typo with CO at the end of the sentence.
Yep.
Should be deleted. Any seconds?
I second it. I just finished reading it.
All right.
Any further discussion?
No, sir.
No,
All right, we'll take a vote. Paul,
I'm all set.
Jason,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so that passes unanimously. We're caught up on those minutes. Other than that, I don't think there's anything else except picking another date. Anything else you want to talk about besides picking another date?
No, I think that's fine.
So we're in February. You want to shoot for May? Is that too far out? Too soon?
That's not too soon. I'm just trying to think in terms of all the stuff that's happening at the mall right now at Solomon Pond, and whether there's stuff that could be happening, Liz, that you might want our input or want us to do something. And if we wait until May or June for our next meeting, that might, I don't know. I mean, do you have,
Well, what month do you propose? What's good for you?
how about April? I mean, is that too
That's
late?
fine.
I mean,
No,
if you're gonna
we're
start,
just
you're
fine.
the books are going to be ready, you said beginning of April, hopefully, right? And you'll start going out with potentially being able to have some potential buyers or people looking at it.
Right.
So April. What day of the week is, Jason, are you?
Other than,
you're pretty busy.
other than Thursdays, when I play volleyball in Clinton, and my preference is that not have that Thursday evening, but even that could work, but like the 10th, can we do Thursday? Sorry, not Thursday, Wednesday, the 9th of April?
Certainly. April 9th it is.
Sure.
Jason, does that work for you, a Wednesday?
Yeah, that should be fine.
Okay. All right, given that we have nothing further, I move that we adjourn this meeting. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.